We welcome both Representative Carolyn Eslick from District 39 and Representative Greg Gilday from District 10. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you, Catherine. Today you'll hear from partners from the Tulalip tribes, Snohomish County, Snohomish Conservation District, and the Washington Farmland Trust. Together we are advancing the concept of integrated floodplain management advocated by Floodplains by Design. Before we jump into the tour, let's hear some opening remarks from Snohomish Conservation District Executive Director Linda Leishall and the Executive Director of the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Lacey Harper. Linda, could you please get us started?
Sure. Thank you, Jessica, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We are excited to brief you on a very successful grant program in the state capital budget called Floodplains by Design. As Jessica said, many partners have joined together and successfully implemented projects like in the current budget proposal. We are well positioned to expand our reach with your help. The grant program has significant bipartisan support in the legislature, due in part to the diligent on-the-ground efforts of project sponsors and partners to bring different interests together and create these multiple benefits, including right here in Snohomish County. We ask that you support the governor's request of $70 million for Floodplains by Design in the capital budget this session. In addition to making important advances for our environment, this funding also provides economic benefits across our state. And I'll hand it over now to Lacey Harper, the Executive Director for Snohomish County's Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, who will provide some details on this.
Yes, thank you so much, Linda, and thank you to all the legislators that were able to join us today and those who've supported this program in the past. We really appreciate your time and understand how clunky it is going virtual on Monday. So funding from the Floodplains by Design program allows us to continue our work to protect and preserve land options and support local jobs. The projects on the 2021-2023 Floodplains by Design list would create about 2,689 jobs across Washington, many of which will stay in Snohomish County. We're working hand in hand with willing landowners and our partners. We are advancing integrated floodplain management here in Snohomish County. Our collaborative effort called Community Floodplain Solutions is putting forward new ideas to keep our local farms viable, reduce flood impacts for residents, and restore habitat for threatened salmon. I'd like to express my sincere thanks to all of our partners who are here today and work tirelessly every day to improve the safety and quality of life for all Snohomish County communities. Now I'll turn it over to you, Jessica, to talk more about our Community Floodplain Solutions. Jessica.
Thank you, Lacey. So we're working in the Snohomish Basin, which is shown in this overview here. The thing to pay attention to on this slide is the active projects shown in the purple stars. This is part of the Phase 1 Floodplains by Design funding that we received in 2019, as well as the blue stars. Those are the projects as part of the 2021 Floodplains by Design package that we're talking to you about today. This area has been identified by project partners as an area with tremendous multi-benefit opportunities throughout decades of resource planning work. The Snohomish and Snohomish River have a long history of flooding and river migration. Flooding and erosion regularly impact farms, businesses, and residential properties and force the closure of local roads. These photos up here are some of the impacts of avulsion, channel migration, and flooding that the lower Snohomish has seen over the last several decades. This image below is an example of what we were able to do with the 2019 Floodplains by Design funding, which was to overlay various hazards to really get a picture of what the landscape looks like in an area we're doing work. And this helps us to identify areas for acquisition and project concepts. This ongoing flood risk is complicated by the continued loss of critical salmon habitat essential for the recovery of Chinook and the southern resident orca. As you can see from this graphic pulled from the Snohomish Basin Conservation Plan, most of the Snohomish River Basin's Chinook spawn in the lower Snohomish main stem and the Snoqualmie main stem, which are shown in red. Climate conditions contribute to increased risks from flooding and erosion and continue to damage the viability of agricultural operations. Local food production is in need of support. With so many shared difficulties, a better approach to river management is needed. Community Floodplain Solutions in Snohomish County is a collaborative effort to keep local farms viable, restore habitat for endangered salmon, and reduce flood impacts for residents. Thanks to multi-interest funding programs like Floodplains by Design, Phase 1 of CFS was launched in 2019, and the ongoing support of the program is essential to implement multi-benefit projects and approaches in Snohomish County. The Floodplains by Design funding request would support implementation of Phase 2 actions discussed today. Phase 2 furthers the integrated floodplain management approach funded in 2019 and expands its scope to include multiple reaches of the Snohomish and Snohomish rivers. This slide includes a summary of benefits from all of the projects in the package. As you can see, implementation of the actions in the package can result in significant strides towards flood risk reduction, habitat restoration, and agricultural resiliency. Funding from the Floodplains by Design program allows us to continue our work to advance mutually beneficial options and support local jobs. As noted in our letter to the governor and referenced by Lacey Harper earlier, the projects on the 21 to 23 Floodplains by Design list would create over 2,500 jobs across Washington state. With a total cost of over $16 million, the project would generate over 260 newer sustained jobs and roughly $35 million to $40 million in total economic activity, of which about 28 million to 32 million will stay within Snohomish County. Now let's visit 3 specific project areas to see dollars at work, helping citizens, fish, and farm interests. We'll begin in the lower Snohomish, in this what we call the Sultan Reach area, just south of the city of Sultan. That's this area here. From there, we'll move downstream to the Haskel Slough project area near the city of Monroe. That's this area. And we'll conclude our tour in the estuary near the city of Everett, this area. The Shinglebolt Slough project is a component of Community Floodplain Solutions effort and will be the first stop on our virtual tour. We'll hear about this project from the project manager at Snohomish County. Brett?
Thanks, Jessica. I'm Brett Gaddis. I'm a habitat specialist at Snohomish County Surface Water Management. I'm going to provide some context to the floodplain challenges and the project goals, then introduce you to a multi-benefit project concept, the Shinglebolt Slough reconnection. This is an aerial photo of the Snohomish River within the Sultan Reach. The north of the main stem river, you can see the city of Sultan, Highway 2, the BNSF Railroad, the Sultan and Wallace River confluences. To the south, agricultural fields, homes, roads, bridges, and floodplain side channels. This is a highly active river reach with ongoing natural river process, flood hazards, agricultural uses, and salmon habitat opportunities. The Snohomish Basin Salmon Recovery Plan has identified that reconnecting off-channel habitat side channels to be key in recovery efforts. On the map, I want to point out the disconnected Shinglebolt Slough. Thanks, Jessica. The just south across the river, the main stem bridge there, the field that used to be a side channel, as well as additional opportunities to address the interaction between other floodplain side channels, their impact to roads, land use, and opportunities for habitat enhancement. Next slide. Looking at the 1938 aerial photo, we see the river was more active with multiple split channels and active gravel bars. The Shinglebolt Slough was actively flowing at that time. While this photo does not represent ecologically intact conditions or necessarily our restoration goals, it shows how the river can change and over time impact infrastructure, land uses, and also create habitat. Next slide. This 1995 photo of the flood is of a 5 to 10 year flood event on the floodplain south of Sultan. The key visuals are that several homes are in the floodway, roads are blocked by water, fields are inundated, the floodplain channels are active and subject to natural river processes, meaning they'll change. You can see the remnant Shinglebolt Slough side channel crossing the field just to the right of the main stem bridge. Thanks, Jessica. Also, the historic levee protecting the past road and bridge alignment is above water. Next slide. The flood impacts extend into the city of Sultan and the adjacent floodplain. In this 2006 flood, there was damage to the Shinglebolt area levee, land erosion, as well as road and bridge damage. That's a brief look at the conditions and constraints we are trying to provide benefit for. Next slide. River and floodplain solutions can provide benefits or mitigation individually to flood, farm, and fish metrics. In some cases, our large projects can provide multi-benefit aspects to all these floodplain uses. Our Shinglebolt Slough project aims to reduce or mitigate flood hazards, retain usable areas of quality agricultural land, and increase Snohomish River critical habitat for Chinook salmon. Acquisitions and public ownership have added benefit of public access like parks and boat launches. It also provides an option for landowners in a changing landscape. Next slide. This is our project concept. It's a guide for feasibility and design analysis that will evaluate project alternatives, inform stakeholders, and floodplain planning. The background is LiDAR image that helps show the numerous floodplain channels. The concept is to remove as much of the historic levee and revetments while providing for or retaining road and bridge protection. This may include a setback levee or biological river controls. The project will remove floodplain fill in the footprint of the remnant side channel, allowing flows to be used by rearing juvenile Chinook. The placement of many large wood structures is to enhance the in-stream habitat, both in the newly created channel and the existing channel downstream. We'll establish a large native vegetation riparian buffer while retaining approximately 10 acres of quality farmland. And that is our project. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Brett. The second stop along our tour is the Haskel Slough Water Conveyance and Connectivity Improvements effort, and we'll hear a bit about this effort from our partners at the Washington Farmland Trust and the Tulalip tribes. Robin? Robin, you probably want to unmute yourself.
There we go. Thanks, Jessica. My name is Robin Fay, and I am the Senior Conservation Manager with Washington Farmland Trust. And as Jessica mentioned, I'm going to talk with you a little bit about this Haskel Slough integrated acquisition project and our role in that. For us, this project started with the goal that's at the core of our mission, which is to protect a working farm as agricultural land for generations to come. And what we've discovered really quickly is that it was going to require strong working partnerships to be successful in not only protecting the farmland from conversion out of agriculture, but also preserving the 2 miles of main stem Snohomish riparian habitat and the off-channel habitat in Haskel Slough. In this aerial photo, you can see the main stem river kind of in the distance, and then some of the wooded areas in the foreground being part of Haskel Slough. The Tulalip tribes were the natural partner in many ways for us and felt like the most appropriate entity to steward the critical habitat for fish in the main stem and Haskel Slough into the future. And fortunately, the tribes were willing to really dive in with us and as partners dedicate the capacity to figure out how we make this work. Next slide. The learning opportunity for us here is figuring out how to take a large historic farm property that also includes critical habitat and break it into those component parts in a way that leverages fish and farm funding and also paves the way for productive habitat and viable farmland to be successful into the future. Currently, we're working with our partners at the tribes and at the county to transfer ownership of the riparian areas to the tribes and then ensure the remaining farmland is permanently conserved with a conservation easement. In this map, you can see essentially an overhead view of the property with the forested riparian areas in the darker green color and those agricultural fields, which make up about 160 acres of the property in the lighter green shades. And so this is what we're trying to essentially preserve is these two uses, being able to exist side by side. Next slide. This example where there's working farmland and viable habitat on the same property is one we'd like to be able to replicate in the Snohomish Basin, and programs like Floodplains by Design are critical in allowing us to take on these kinds of integrated floodplain acquisition projects. As you can see from these two photos, these are both taken on that property just a stone's throw away from each other. This is a really key opportunity to conserve fish habitat and farmland in one fell swoop. And again, it's programs like Floodplains by Design that really make that possible. At this point, I'll transition to Brett Shattuck with the Tulalip tribes to talk a little bit more about their role.
Thanks, Robin. I really appreciate the partnership and the intro. My name's Brett Shattuck. I'm a restoration ecologist with the Tulalip tribes, and we were able to put together a pretty short video we can just show you real fast to give you a good look at Haskel Slough and our efforts there.
Today, we're on the banks of the Snohomish River, the beautiful Snohomish River, one of the primary watersheds of the Tulalip tribes. My name is Brett Shattuck. I'm a restoration ecologist with the Tulalip tribes, and we're here today to discuss a restoration project, like a lot of restoration projects we do throughout the basin, to help with salmon recovery and multi-benefit projects. Haskel Slough is located at this critical point in the Snohomish River, just south of the town of Monroe. And it's a 2.4 mile, over 70 acre side channel of the Snohomish River that's so important, especially for early juvenile rearing. And that's what we've seen is the bottleneck for salmon recovery. But it's also really important to other people in the basin, including our farming community and people and infrastructure that's vulnerable to flooding. At the inlet of Haskel Slough is a training dike or levee that helps figure out where water can go, push water to one side of the river. Unfortunately, it was installed a long time ago, has been overtopped many times, and it's degraded over time. And in fact, it's in a pretty bad state with a lot of risk to downstream infrastructure, including some highways and some culverts and some access to people's land. And that levee needs a long-term fix. Right now we have funding that's already in hand for the purchase of the majority of this property out here. That's phase one. We're underway with that right now. Phase two is working together with our partners in farming, Washington Farmland Trust, the county, Snohomish Conservation District, and others, the farmland community, to basically work to restore connectivity where we can help fish, we can help farms, we can help flooding and prevent damage to infrastructure, all in one project.
Thanks. We'll just turn that over now, and I'll be here to answer questions at the end.
Thank you, Brett. Oops. Sorry, folks. Transition the technology. Okay. The third and final stop along our tour will be the Swans Trail Slough Restoration and Agricultural Resilience Project. We'll get an overview from this provided by our partners at the Snohomish Conservation District. Bennett?
Yeah, hi. My name is Bennett LaFawn, and I'm the Agriculture and Floodplains Resilience Project Manager at Snohomish Conservation District. Today, I'm going to share with you a few details on the multi-benefit project we're developing in Swans Trail Slough. This is a project which shows how we can leverage landscape scale opportunities to simultaneously benefit agriculture, fish habitat, and flood protection. This design work is being driven by Floodplains by Design, but RCPP, CREP, Natural Resources Investment, Shellfish Program, and Conservation Technical Assistance funding are working together to provide critical match and leverage to make this project a reality and other projects like it. Drainage Improvement District 13 is a narrow district nested between the Snohomish River and the largely developed Phobes Hill uplands. Next slide. Just over 400 of the 580 total acres in the district support commercial agriculture, primarily growing hay and silage, as well as supporting cattle, small livestock, vegetables, fruit, agritourism, and other small enterprises. Next slide. Swans Trail Slough is part of the drainage system managed by DD13, which maintains a system of ditches, river levees, and a pump station. The slough is a natural drainage that collects water off of the uplands and flows south to north along a sliver of farmland north of the old railroad grade. The railroad grade separates the slough from a system of managed ditches that drain most of the farmland in the district. These two systems meet up approximately halfway up the district. The water from both systems gravity drains into EB Slough through a 6-foot diameter tide gate when the water level in EB Slough is lower than Swans Trail Slough. When the water level in EB Slough is high due to snowmelt or storms, the district runs its 12-inch diameter fish-friendly pump to move water out of the district, primarily in the spring. Slide. Changing weather patterns are likely to triple the frequency of floods by 2050 at the 17-foot stage, which can overtop levees, flood structures, and require risk management such as livestock evacuation. Despite being 8 miles upriver, Swans Trail Slough is tidally influenced due to the low river gradient. Because of this, sea level rise may further exacerbate flood issues. To create resilience to future flood events, existing drainage infrastructure such as culverts and pumps and pipes may need to be upgraded, along with the levee and potential pump station upgrades. Next slide. Swans Trail Slough is currently connected at its downstream end to the Snohomish River. A landowner on the slough's upstream end is interested in turning much of his forested property into habitat. This area of the slough could serve as an essential rearing habitat for trout and salmon with some improvements. As well, fish are currently able to enter agricultural drainage systems. Not only are these ditches terrible for fish, but fish presence causes a permitting issue for farmers trying to maintain ditches. Slide. Snohomish Conservation District has been working with DD13 to develop a plan to maximize the habitat benefits of the slough and improve drainage to the district. Our partners have vetted and backed this project as an ideal example of a multi-benefit project. SCD is working with CardNode to model alternatives which will separate out fish systems, increase drainage, and take advantage of the slough to develop new habitat. Increased habitat north of the railroad grade may provide additional flood storage as well. Slide. CardNode is currently exploring 3 concept alternatives with the intent to present alternatives to landowners in the spring of 2021. When landowners select a preferred alternative, CardNode will develop it to a 30% design. Future Floodplains by Design funding is intended to bring this project to implementation. Slide. CardNode's 3 proposed alternatives explore different ways to split habitat and agricultural drainage systems. Solutions focus on levee improvements, ditch pluggings, culvert upgrades, pump relocation, and changes to outlets to the Snohomish River. Ideal scenarios may also include a downstream connection to former DD6, opening up significant wetland space as rearing habitat, and an upstream connection, increasing fish access and hydraulic conveyance. For the sake of time of this presentation, we're going to focus on alternatives 3 and 4, which are the most extensive upgrades, to give you an idea of what might be possible. Slide. Here we're looking at alternative 3. This includes no pump and tide gate relocation, a dike breach with a full or partial estuary restoration of former DD6 and installation of a self-regulating tide gate, excavation of a new primary maintained drainage ditch, including a new culvert crossing, and construction of a new separation levee along the alignment of the former railroad. Most importantly, it also includes aquatic isolation of Swans Trail Slough as habitat for juvenile salmonids and other riparian flora and fauna, and an extension of Swans Trail Slough as a wall-based channel for improved wetland and aquatic rearing habitat. Alternative 4 can be added to any alternative and outlines an upstream flow connection with a self-regulating tide gate from the main Snohomish River channel to the southeast corner of Dyke and District 13. Slide. Here we're looking at a spring conditions model that shows spring conditions flooding. In blue, you see a range of flooding depth from 0 to 10 feet deep. The yellows, reds, and greens are elevations above waterline, and the black lines are the modeling grid with varying levels of resolution. This is just an existing conditions model, but we plan to run this same model with all of the alternatives so we can see how they will change the movement of water within DD13 given the application of any alternative. We're really excited to use these tools to explore the possibilities in DD13 with stakeholders. I just want to say thank you for your time. We're excited to be able to show this project and how it's coming along as an example of how we can improve drainage and ease of maintenance while increasing fish habitat and flood storage, and as a prime example of how farm, fish, and flood interests can find mutual benefit and common ground. Thank you very much. Let me turn this over to SCD Executive Director Linda Leischall for some final words.
Thank you, Benna, and all of our presenters. The critical factors in accomplishing these projects are the collaborative partnerships that we've established and other funding sources as well that provide leverage and match. The funding sources that the Conservation District and private landowners rely on include the Washington State Conservation Commission request, such as the request for conservation technical assistance and capital budget requests for CREP riparian state match, natural resource investments, Regional Conservation Partnership Program or RCPP funding, and the Shellfish Program. These funds are critical for us to do our work, and the projects we've highlighted and many more proposed are beneficial to farm, fish, and flood. Projects like the Fall City Project and the Snohomish Watershed Integrated Floodplain Management Project have the potential to improve a large portion of priority floodplain area and advance integrated floodplain management in the Snohomish and Snohomish watersheds. We respectfully request your support for the $70 million Floodplains by Design budget, as well as the other capital budget requests that help implement these projects. Thank you so much for your time today. We'd like to open it up now for some questions. So if there's anyone that has questions, please speak up.
This is Representative Carolyn Eslick. I've got 3 questions, so I don't want to hog the time. Let's start off with what was the budget that you received, the funding you received in 2019? How much was that?
The 2019 funding we received from Floodplains by Design was $4.8 million, roughly.
So this is a huge increase, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. This question goes to Bennett on the Swans Trail Slough. Did I hear you say that the 70 million would not include funding to purchase property from the local farmer? Is that true?
I don't believe so for this one. We're not looking at an acquisition here.
Okay.
Generally speaking, all of the places where the land is being changed are not currently used.
Right.
And there's not much involvement in that kind of north side of the railroad grade. Really what's happening as far as in land that people are farming is drainage improvements and ditch improvements. On that north side, the only place where anyone's really active is kind of in that southern corner where you see that yellow line. And that is this landowner, Thomas Bennett, who wants to turn his property into a restoration site.
And so when you say he wants to turn it in, he wants to do it on so it's a donation to wildlife?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. And then the next question is, how many culverts are we going to repair and reconstruct? Because we are looking at that huge lawsuit that state had, and that we have to have so many done by 2030. So I'm wondering, what is the number of culverts that is included in this $70 million? And if you don't have that answer, you could get back to me with that.
Yeah, I think we would need to get back to you. Just a quick clarification, the $70 million budget request is for all of the projects on the list. The one that we're talking about is the $8.5 million one, but we do have some culvert replacements in there, but I'd have to get back with you on the exact amount. But we could follow up with you and get an idea of a rough number of culverts that would be generated from all the projects on this list.
That would be very beneficial.
Okay, I will make a note.
Also, I'm happy to jump in here. This is Brett Shattuck with the Tulalip Tribes. Just to clarify, most of the culverts that are probably done with this funding are probably not state-owned state-owned culverts, so probably would not be part of that injunction that you were referring to.
All right, and that makes sense to me. However, with that said, it's still a benefit.
Correct. You're very much correct.
Big benefit. Okay.
100%. I definitely agree. Thank you.
That's all my questions. And I was thrilled to see that this is all in my district. I've been through many of those floods since I lived here in Sultan since 1979. And in the first year I was here, it flooded my business. So, I've been thrilled to be able to get to know what this organization is doing and the help that you are giving to our farmers and to the fish. I mean, that's a huge part of this. So this has been very helpful for me. And I think that this is Representative Gilday's first introduction to this. Is that true? Representative Gilday, is this the first time you've heard of this organization doing this work?
I think I've been through some other presentations like this on some other projects.
Okay.
No, I like what I see.
Yeah, it's good work.
And thank you for your comments, Representative Eslick. I just wanted to point out that sorry if I'm making you all sick to go back, but I wanted to point out that the Shinglebolt Slough project, part of our goal, as Brett was talking about, is to relieve flooding conditions in the city of Sultan area.
Yeah,
so that is something we're looking at with the project alternatives.
Sure, that's awesome.
Would anybody else, Mark, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I would just like to say that, I'm involved on the state level conservation districts, and I can't be more prouder of our district and our partners that we have in this county, how well we all work together and to do these amazing projects, the tribes, the county, all of you guys are amazing. And as a partnership, we can do so much. And I know that this year is going to be tough for you representatives with funding and everything going on. But I just think that natural resources need to be included in decisions and funded, and all these good things continue to be done. So thank you to all our partners. You guys are wonderful, and we couldn't do the things that the district that we do without all of you. And thank you to the representatives for supporting us and at least considering and working to fund us. We really appreciate that, and you taking time to be with us today.
May I make a couple more comments here?
Absolutely.
So did you prioritize the projects on the list that I just saw?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I can assume that the first 10 are the 10 top priorities.
Yes, we went
Okay.
through an extensive reach scale planning effort that evaluated all the different river systems in Snohomish County in both basins and came up with a subset of projects that we thought would have primary benefits to fish, farm, and flood. And so
Right.
that's what we're doing with this, is trying to carry that work forward.
Great. Now, I also assume that you sent me this PowerPoint, correct?
We can. Well, actually, we've recorded the entire presentation, so we can send you a link to that as well.
I would like to be able to print off the list of projects. Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. Because it is true that it's going to be very difficult funding some of these things this next year, next 2 years. And so my guess is we're going to have to, pare it down a bit. But who knows, right? I mean, this is a moving target in the way things are happening with us this year. So we'll see.
Yeah, we understand the difficulties for sure. And I think that's why we just encourage as much as you can to support the $70 million governor's budget request, because I think a lot of these projects will benefit other areas of Puget Sound and other areas of Washington. And so I think it would just be a real big lift to fish, farm, and flood.
Yes. Okay.
Well, thank you all so much for your time. Would anyone like to give any last words before we jump off for the day?
Just thank you, and do follow up with us if you have any questions.
And we'll follow up with you, Representative Eslick, on your question about the culverts.
That's great. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you very much, and enjoy your Friday. And Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy
Good
New
seeing
Year
you,
to
Carolyn.
Bye-bye, Mark. Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Tom.
Thank you all.